All right, so today is Java 1, Lesson 1. And today we're going to be talking about printing statements and a setup of general Java programs. All right, so this is a general setup of a Java program. If you looked on JDoodle when I showed it to you, then you can see this is basically what they had on there as well. So the main features of a general Java program is this whole thing. So first you have a public class and then a name. So keep in mind that this name is whatever. So you can name it whatever you want. You can name it random. You can name it shape. You can name it whatever. This is something that you can use yourself. So, but this public class part, it has to remain that way. So make sure that you don't change this anyway. And then you can see we have a set of curly brackets. And then inside these curly brackets, you have something called like this. And this is public static void main. And in parentheses, you have string, args, and square brackets. So I understand that this might be a little bit hard to memorize at the beginning, especially since you might not understand why the words are there. But trust me, you'll be learning this later if you decide to go on to the other Java courses. For right now, though, I would suggest you try to memorize this and remember how it goes. And after it, you can see we have another set of curly brackets. So yeah, this makes up the whole Java program. And every single time you want to do Java, you want to make sure that you have this, because otherwise you're not going to be able to run anything. You're going to have loads of problems. So make sure you have this. Okay, lots of words, but we're going to go through it one by one. So notes about the general setup. So again, like I mentioned, the name of the class can be anything, but everything else in the code has to remain the same. Later on, there will be other things that can go between. But again, this is something you're not going to learn in this course. You're going to learn it in other courses. Okay, so formatting is important because it makes your program easier to read and easier to find mistakes. So be sure to have a consistent format. So what I mean by format is something like this. Okay, so we have brackets here, but notice how I have a spacing between here and here. So that's what I mean. You have to have a consistent formatting. So this goes here, and the brackets that come after it also go on the same line here. And then this part of the brackets also go over here. So you'll be learning more why like the brackets are situated like that. But when you're setting up the general Java program, I would suggest you make sure that you have these spacings so that it's easier for both me and anybody else who wants to read and you to read. So next one. So Java is case sensitive, which means that a capitalized letter is different from a lowercase letter. So going back to the other slide, you can see here that public class, they're all lowercase. So if you, for example, make this P into a capital P, then you're going to get an error. So make sure to put the stuff that needs to be lowercase into lowercase and the stuff that needs to be uppercase, like this S here, into uppercase. Yeah, so make sure to spell words correctly. Again, if you spell something incorrectly, even though it's like one letter off, it's still gonna make you cause errors. So just make sure to spell all your words correctly. Okay, the next one is a kind of, you don't have to worry about it right now since you're using JDoodle, but if you decided to download Java, then you would need to pay attention to this. So the name of your file must correspond with what you name your program with the .java at the end. So basically, when you save your file into your computer, then you have to name it exactly what you name it in the beginning. So this name right here, and then .java. Otherwise, it's not going to work. The name of your program can't start with a number and can't have spaces. By can't have spaces, you can't have spaces between the letters. So these are called naming conventions, and well, not really naming conventions, but it's just some restrictions with what you can name it. Also, just make sure to compile your program before you run it. Again, this thing is something you're not going to have to worry about unless you download Java. Okay, general format for print statements. So of course you need to have some way to output your some stuff, right? So this is the general format for it. So it's system.out.print, and then in parentheses, in quotes, hello world. And then you have a semicolon at the end. So what the output would be something like this, hello world. Okay, so notice that the quotes are not printed along with the words. So these quotes here are not printed here. You only see the hello world, not any of the quotes. And this statement is also put between the second pair of brackets. I believe I have an example of it after this, so you'll see like exactly where you're supposed to put it in a few seconds. Again, case sensitive, so this S is supposed to be capitalized. Everything else is supposed to be lowercase unless you have anything in here that's supposed to be capitalized.
Wait, I have a question.
Yeah.
In the JDoodle program, they did system.out.println. So there's supposed to be an ln at the end or not?
Yeah, I'll go over that in a second, and you'll see why there's an ln and why there's not over here.
Okay, thanks.
Mm-hmm. All right. Another type of print statement, not really another type, but another thing that you could print out. Okay, so you can see here that I have the same thing over here, the system.out.print. But in parentheses this time, instead of something that has quotes around it, like the hello world, I have 5 plus 4, like a regular addition statement. So the output of this would be 9. So in this case, notice that there are no quotes, and that Java adds the 2 numbers before printing them out. So in this case, if you don't have any quotes, then it would actually compute the numbers for you and then print it out. So that's why you get 9 instead of 5 plus 4. Okay, just an extra tidbit. If you were to want to print out 5 plus 4 instead of just 9, sorry, this would be the code, and you have the system.out.print. In parentheses this time instead of just 5 plus 4, this time I add quotes around it, and that's how you would get 5 plus 4 as the output. Again, notice that there are quotes around it this time, where in the previous example there were none. So a general rule of thumb with this is that if you want to compute your answer, then you put it without quotes. If you just want to print out the statement, then you do 5 plus 4 with quotes around it. All right, so this is where I mentioned like the println part. So this is the statement we did before, and system.out.print really only prints all on the same line in the output, which makes it seem a bit jumbled. So generally you're not going to use system.out.print unless you had a specific reason why you wanted to use it. But another type of print statement that fixes this all on the same line is system.out.println. So this would print what it's supposed to print, but then move on to the next line instead of staying all in the one line. So for example, I think actually no, I have an example later, but just, yeah. So it prints, for example, if we had system.out.println 5 inside, then it would print 5 and then go on to the next line. But if we had system.out.print 5, then it would only print 5 and then stay on that same line. And if we had another print statement after it that said system.out.print 7, then the output would become 57 instead of 5 new line 7. but I'm pretty sure I have an example afterwards, so you'll see more about what I mean. Okay, yeah, so examples of the previous slide. So you can see here that in this first one, I have system.out.println, and then 5 plus 4. So remember, this actually computes it, so that's why you have a 7 here. Sorry, not 7, 9. And then you have system.out.print, and that comes out with hello world with the quotes around it, remember? So this actually prints out hello world. So the output would be 9 and then hello world. So you can see how when we have println here, we move on to the next one. Over here, you can see that the only difference between this one and this one is that we remove the ln here. So this time you can see that the output would be 9 hello world. So this is because it doesn't move on to a new line after it prints this. So 9 here. And that's why it's all jumbled together. Oopsies. Skip several. Okay. This is the thing. Okay. So symbols for printing certain things, escape characters. So in Java, there's certain times you can't really print something because they're like, they're just, you have to do something to print them out. You can't just put, for example, this first one, this prints quotes. You can't just put quotes since they're going to confuse it with something that I'm going to talk about later. Actually, tomorrow, really. Not tomorrow, next week. So that's why we have escape characters so that we're able to actually print it. So the first symbol we have is this, and it's a backslash quote. So this prints quotes, and notice that one of this only prints out one quote. So if you were to print 2 quotes, then you'd have to put 2 of this symbol. So backslash quote, backslash quote. Next one is backslash n, and this creates a new line. It's also called the new line character. So this is another way to create a new line other than system.out.println. So notice with system.out.println, you can only create one new line with one of these. But if you had a backslash n, then you could put multiple backslash n in one print statement, and then that will create multiple new lines for you. So this is a more dynamic way of doing it, but generally, unless you really needed it, you wouldn't really use this. The next one we have is backslash backslash, and this prints 1 backslash. Yeah, so again, you'd have to put like multiple backslashes to be able to get a few backslashes. All right, so examples of backslash quote. So you can see here we have the original statement, the system.out.println hello world. This would output hello world, again, without the quotes. But instead, if this time we add backslash quote here and a backslash quote here, then that would output hello world with quotes around it. So notice how the symbol is inside the initial quotes and that the order of the backslash and the quote is not switched if it goes at the end of the print statement. So that's something some people miss sometimes. And so just keep in mind that it's backslash quote, not backslash quote, quote, backslash. All right, examples of backslash n. So this time we have a system.out.print hello world, and that prints out hello world. But this time, if we do the same thing, but add a backslash n right in the middle of it, then you can see here that we have the output hello world on different lines. So that's what I mean. You can put it really dynamically, so you can put it anywhere really, and then it's going to add a new line. And also just notice that they're inside quotes again. So whenever you use escape characters, you always have to have them inside the initial quotes. Otherwise, it's not going to work. Examples of backslash backslash. All right, so original statement here, hello world. This time we add a backslash backslash in the middle of it, and you can see here that what comes out is hello backslash world. So again, just note that there's only one backslash. Notes on print statements. Again, a lot of words, but we're still going to get through it. Okay. So anything you put within the parentheses can be printed as long as it's correct with syntax. Syntax is just formatting in symbols. Again, Java is case sensitive. System.out.print is different from system with a lowercase s .out.print. Java won't accept the second one. Again, spell things correctly. Using system.out.println is a better choice when wanting to print something, but because it has better formatting when it prints out. There are some times when you will need to use system.out.print, however. Again, I already said this before, but just saying it again. Yeah, again, just put words you want to print in quotes, and numbers and operators. Operators are like the plus, the minus, etc. Should not be in quotes if you want to perform operations. So if you wanted to calculate 5 plus 7, you wouldn't put it in quotes. But words you would have to put in quotes. Make sure to put the print statement within the second pair of brackets. Again, I'll show it to you in a second. If you're using symbols, make sure to put them inside of quotation marks. So what I mean by symbols is escape characters. So commenting. Okay. So to make a comment, you can use a // and then whatever you type afterwards will be ignored by Java. So again, this can be put anywhere. So commenting is usually used to make things clear to the reader of the program if others need to use it, or if you look back on the code. So this just makes it easier for you, because oftentimes if you look at a piece of code, you often can't just read it on site. But if you had something in English and easier to read, then that will be a lot easier in understanding the code and maybe debugging, which means like fixing code. So another use of commenting is that you can also just comment out bad code so it doesn't stop the program. Since remember, if you had an error in like spelling and you commented out, then it wouldn't affect the code. So it wouldn't stop the program. Where if you didn't comment it out, then it would stop the program. Notice that // this only comments out the line that it's on, but not multiple lines. And since you don't want to do multiple // then to comment out multiple lines without having to type so many front slashes, you can put / star otherwise at the beginning of the section that you want to comment out, and * at the end of the section. So notice here that this is where you flip to, but where if you did / quote, then you wouldn't switch it. And yeah, I think that's all for today then. It's sort of a long lesson, but it's an important one since it's the building block to every single other thing you're going to do in Java. So yeah. Otherwise, in a second, we'll be doing class problems. Okay, so these are the problems for lesson 1. And you can see here that the top part is the regular problems, and the bottom part is the challenge problems. So first do the regular problems, and if you feel like you have no problem, then you could do the challenge problems. It's important to do these so that you know that you're doing it correctly. But yeah, if you have any questions, then you can ask me. Otherwise, I think that would be about it today. Next week would be lesson 2.